Hi there, Duke fans. Welcome to episode 227 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. I am your captain on the ship this week. My name is Jason Evans. I am joined, as always, my first mates, co-first mates. First of all, Samuel Klein. Sam, where are you hanging out right now?
I am fully moved into my new apartment in Boston, and I started a new job this week. So it's been a little bit of madness around here, but I'm finally starting to settle down again, which is great. And I also know from social media and talking to friends that school started at Fuqua, at the business school at Duke yesterday. So that was cool to see that they're back on campus in a limited way. They're doing a sort of pseudo in-person, pseudo online version of the thing. So it was cool to see that kicking off.
And also, as always, Donald Wine is with us. Donald, still in Texas, but headed home soon?
Yes, I will be headed home probably a couple hours after we record here on Tuesday morning. So I will be heading back to DC. But for now, the last couple hours in the state, or I'm sorry, I should say the Republic of Texas.
Folks, we have a chock full episode with some really interesting stuff for you, but we're going to start with a conversation that I had just yesterday with Henry Coleman, freshman on the Duke basketball team. Henry, as you will recall, we took the very unusual step last week of beginning an episode with words from Henry Coleman. We did not include the Duke band at the top. Instead, all we had was Henry speaking some very, very powerful words that he had spoken about the issue of social justice in society. And in the wake of that, the Duke basketball media department made Henry available to reporters because the speech he gave and the words he spoke had resonated so much across the sporting world landscape. And so Henry sat down via Zoom with 24 reporters. I was very fortunate to be one of them. I will tell you, I've done a pretty fair number of these. I have, in the course of my time, interviewed a lot of different basketball players, mostly Duke players, but different basketball players from different teams. I've rarely been as impressed with the poise and calm and thoughtfulness of a player as I was when I spoke to Henry Coleman. This kid, we are so fortunate to have him, and I know a lot of people are unsure how much of an impact he's going to make on the floor, the impact he's going to make in the locker room, the impact he is going to make as a leader and as an example to other players in the team, I think is incalculable. I'm going to stop talking now and let you listen to the interview. It begins with a question from a reporter from Richmond. Henry's from Virginia, and there were a number of local reporters who joined this call. You'll then hear me and a couple other folks ask a few different questions. Have a listen to Henry Coleman as he speaks about both the social justice message that he gave, and also I got to ask him a couple questions about practice and about his teammates and the current state of the Duke team. And make sure you stick around. His last answer is a giant. It's such a great one. Have a listen. Here is Henry Coleman talking to the media about being a brand new freshman at Duke.
Your remarks on Thursday during the protest, I think, moved a lot of people. Just curious what inspired that, and just kind of how thankful you were for the opportunity to be able to get that chance to address the student body during that protest.
Yeah, I thought it was an unbelievable job by Coach K and Coach Nolan, what they had set up. But I was just moved just to speak for the people that didn't have a voice. My parents told me to always just use my platform. I built this platform. They always tell me you wouldn't build a house and not sleep in it. So I just have to use this platform and continue to talk.
Yeah. Hey, Henry. So first of all, the moment that the team came up behind you when you were delivering that statement on Thursday and they all came up to support you and be a part of what you were saying, what was that planned in advance? How did that make you feel? What went into all of that?
It was not planned. I think it was just those guys being my brothers and being with me. It almost felt like a security blanket. It felt like I had people around me that truly cared and that really followed the message with me.
And a little bit of a follow-up to that, you're just a freshman. How did it feel to be sort of one of the leaders of the team, one of the guys chosen to make that statement and to have so many guys following you like that? Do you perceive yourself as a leader even though you're so new to the program?
It's just some capabilities I always have. I feel like I can lead these guys, but there are other guys on this team that are way more experienced than me, that have way more knowledge, and that I can just kind of be a sponge and, soak up all the knowledge that they have to give me. But I have those leadership qualities that I will be able to, keep voicing and keep leading.
So Henry, I want to ask you a little bit about practice. I know that you guys have only just begun to sort of get into groups where you're playing with other players and not just doing individual stuff. Who's really impressed you? Who are the guys out there that you go, wow, I can't believe that this guy can do that, or whatever else it may be? And then after you answer, I want to follow up about your specific play, but start with your teammates first.
I mean, it's kind of crazy seeing like all the guys and what they can do from the guard perspective and from the wings into the bigs. Everybody's working hard, but a couple of people that have just, are remarkable. Every time I watch DJ shoot the ball, it's funny. We do some shooting competitions together at the end of practice. And it's just like, I kind of get, 5 real quick, and then DJ gets 10 threes out of nowhere. So it's just true. It's just unbelievable. And then, seeing Jalen and Jamin and Mark, a couple other freshman guys, they're just so real athletes. Mark at 7 feet, being able to do some of the stuff that he does is kind of crazy. And then Jalen and Jamin being freakish athletes, being able to handle the ball and do other things is pretty cool. And then for the upperclassmen guys, Jay Gold, Joey, Wendell, Matt, those guys, continue to get better every day. I continue to learn from them, seeing some of the stuff that they do on and off the court.
Hey, really quick, best 3-point shooter in the team, DJ or Joey?
Oh, man, it's hard. That's definitely hard. That's a hard one right there. I got to see that. I got to see this one, though. I might got to bring that up to the guys soon.
So, and I wanted to follow up. Has Coach K talked to you about what your role will be on this team? I think a lot of guys probably have a good sense of what their role is going to be, and I'm not as sure that I have a good sense of what your role is going to be this season.
Not yet. Coach and I, he continue to get better. That's what he teaches me every day and talks to me about, continue to get better, with your skills and, what I have to do for this team for them to win.
Hey, Henry, JB Ricks with Spectrum News 1. Thanks so much for taking out time. My question for you is, these are unprecedented times that we're going through right now, and it's always going to be a challenge for any incoming class, to gel and build that chemistry that you need. And with Duke, this is kind of the norm, like, 4-star, 5-star freshmen coming in. How have the things that have been taking place in our society and, the pandemic, how have these things helped build the chemistry that you incoming freshmen have to have with this Duke team, knowing that you guys are going through things that we've never seen before?
Yeah, I think, honestly, even before a lot of this was happening, we were already close. Most of the guys, we had known each other through camps, through even playing together. But then with these things coming along, it's definitely brought us closer. We've just been able to, to talk about a lot of the stuff that's been going on. But then we kind of use basketball as this safe haven. We're out there shooting around, joking around, and just playing. Everything else in the outside world kind of goes away, and we're just, you're focused on making that shot, getting that steal, or just getting that win. So we use that basketball as that safe haven, kind of to get rid of the outside world and kind of focus on just basketball.
So Henry, I wanted to ask you about the situation on campus. Has the team interacted with other students very much at all? Or have you guys tried to sort of stay in just a basketball/athletic bubble out of safety? And as a, sort of as an appendum to that, have you all talked about or thought at all about the notion of perhaps being in a bubble for the basketball season and not being a part of life on Duke campus?
For right now, we're just kind of, in our little basketball bubble, you could say. We still have the option of going into our in-person classes. Some of the guys still do that. Duke is doing a great job of socially distancing those classrooms and, having smaller groups. But for right now, we have not talked about that as a team. We just continue to kind of stay in our little bubble that we have now.
All right, Henry, one last question, not related to basketball. What are your passions outside of the game?
I'm a huge, hopefully a lot of people know this, but I love to be outdoors. I love to go fishing. I like just being out in nature, One of my favorite authors is Henry David Thoreau. He's a guy, he always preached on, being out in nature. So that's one of my favorite things to do.
So, guys, Henry David Thoreau. I can't believe that we have on our basketball team a guy who, when someone said, "Hey, what do you do for fun?" he said, "Well, I like to read Henry David Thoreau." I consider myself a reasonably intellectual person. It's just been a while since I did any Thoreau, and I think it was because I was assigned to do it, not because I wanted to. It just shows the intellectual curiosity of this guy. Donald, go first. What do you think of the interview? What do you think of Henry?
I think he's great. You were moved by the thorough part and being out in nature. Those are things that I did when I was 18. Come on, I mean, that's child's play. But what I will say is there was one part that he spoke about in the beginning that I thought showed the poise that you were saying, when he said that he was, quote, moved to speak for the people who didn't have a voice. That is not a lot. That's not something a lot of 18-year-olds say or do. And like I mentioned last show, the fact that he's a freshman, the fact that he is in his first few weeks on campus, that he knows very few people probably outside of the basketball team because he mentioned that they were in this bubble. The fact that he's able to step up and feel the confidence to speak on behalf of so many is something that a lot of people don't have. And it's almost regrettable that he has to show that poise at this point in his college career on something so poignant but also serious natured. We want to see that leadership on the court, and we can tell from what we're hearing from him now that will translate onto the court very easily. But the fact that he has thrust himself forward, and this movement, at least on the Duke campus, is something that a lot of people don't get to experience. And really, that it just shows the kind of kid that he is and the kind of leader that he's going to be. Because remember, he's only 18 years old. This isn't the peak of his leadership career. He's just beginning. And if he's beginning on this level, then damn, I got to get going, because I think, I'm not to get political, but Barack Obama and several other people have said over the last few weeks that this young generation, these 18, 19, 20-year-olds have been leading this social justice movement. And we're seeing that with our athletes as well. I mean, yes, we'll talk about the NBA. We've talked about the NBA, but a lot of college kids are stepping up too. And Henry Coleman is no exception to that. And really, again, I'll say it like I said last year, I'm damn glad that he's on this team. I
don't want us to resort to the tropes about these are guys who go to Duke, they're obviously very worldly and all that. No, this kid clearly is a little bit above and beyond what I would expect from any Duke student, or certainly any Duke student athlete. As you said, Donald, the fact that he was so young and able to step up in front of all of those people, he doesn't know people on campus yet. He knows his teammates because he's been primarily texting with them, but he's seen them in person a little bit here over the summer. I mean, he's brand new to this, and he's stepping right into the spotlight. It's an immense thing to see, and not something that comes along very often. I'm trying to remember a Duke student athlete who had this much of a voice this early in their career. Like Nolan Smith has developed into this kind of person. It took him until his junior, senior year of college before he was really the big man on campus, outspoken about things. As a freshman, he was pretty quiet, and I remember because I was on campus with him. So it's not like he was that guy, but Henry Coleman is clearly that guy. So it's going to be a joy to watch him and root for him the next few years. And then moving from that, I want to talk a little bit about the team, because Jason asked him about the progress of the team. I think that the 3-point shooting contest that he alluded to between DJ Stewart and Joey Baker is going to be something to behold. So hopefully Duke social media gets a hold of that, and they do a contest behind the scenes that they can videotape for us. So that was exciting. But if we're going to have a season this year, and if it's going to start anytime in the next few months, which I think is still pretty up in the air, we've said that there are a lot of new guys on this team, and Coleman's not one that we, ask us a week ago, do we think Henry Coleman is going to play a significant role on the court this year for Duke? Probably not. There are a lot of guys ahead of him. He's a 4-star. Duke has tons of 5-stars on the roster, other big guys. So is Henry Coleman expected to play a lot? Not necessarily, but if we know that he has this kind of attitude, Coach K loves guys with this kind of attitude. He loves Emil Jeffersons. He loves Matt Jones. This kind of player plays for Duke. And maybe it's not his freshman year, maybe it's down the road, but we will see him in games. But I'm glad that we also got to ask him a little bit about basketball, because as much, as stimulating as I think it is for us to talk about all the issues, at the end of the day, we are the Duke Basketball Report. So it is good to hear a little bit about basketball once in a while.
And so when you're talking about the leadership aspect of things, and you were talking about, how Nolan Smith as a freshman and sophomore wasn't really vocal with his leadership and grew into that role as he blossomed. We also were in a time back then where we had guys ahead of him that had that leadership that he could defer to. And in this one and done era, we just lost a few guys from last year, and now we have a brand new slate of guys. Yeah, we still have some older upperclassmen that are still on the team, but there's a role for a freshman leader to step up. And honestly, the way you said it, with comparing them to Matt Jones and Emil Jefferson, they all had maybe one quality that got them on the floor, but their leadership also kept them on the floor too, because they're in that second unit, they're going to need it.
By the way, look at to demonstrate how inexperienced this team is. Wendell Moore is the player that Coach K wanted to appoint to the Players Council, and by all accounts, we don't know this yet, but by all accounts, he's probably going to be a captain, and he's only a sophomore. And I think we've only had sophomore captains twice before on the Duke basketball team. So this is going to be a young team. The experienced players are not necessarily the ones who have played the most minutes, save for Moore and Hurt, and those guys are only sophomores.
I just want to, again, thank Duke for allowing me and others to speak to Henry. It was a great experience. He revealed a lot to us. And one last thing on the Henry David Thoreau thing. There was someone on Twitter, clearly one of the reporters who had been on the call, who tweeted at Henry and said, "Hey, Henry told us all that his favorite author is Henry David Thoreau." And Henry Coleman corrected him. He said, no, I didn't say favorite author. I said favorite transcendentalist. I'm sorry, guys. How many college basketball players even know what the word transcendentalist means?
How many people? How many people?
Yeah, exactly.
I knew what it was, but I went to Duke and I learned that at Duke. Yeah. I didn't learn it when I got there.
I have a special place in my heart for this moment, because I used to, when I was in college, I used to watch Jeopardy every day with one of my good friends. And one of the things we like to do when we watch Jeopardy is for Final Jeopardy, they put the
category.
They put the category up, and then they take a commercial break, and then they come back. What we would try to do is guess the clue or guess the answer.
I do the same thing. I do the same thing.
Just with the category. Yeah. I think this is common. And the one time I got it right was the category was places in literature, and I guessed Walden Pond. So I was very excited. I was very excited that Henry Coleman is into David Thoreau.
Very well done. Very well done.
And a real quick sidebar. I think you thank Duke for having us on to have these interviews. I thank them as well, but also I think it's great that they're doing more of these interview availabilities. We've seen, I don't know if it's because of COVID or what, but during this pandemic,
it's because of COVID,
like it's easy to get 40 guys on a Zoom call, or 40 journalists on a Zoom call and say, we're going to have this guy available. I hope that continues during the season, because it's giving us a lot of chances to get some more insight into the personality of these players. And I know that, the social media does a great job, but this is another way of doing it. And I'm glad that Duke is stepping up and doing that.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It's been a lot of fun. They limit it, by the way, to 25 reporters. They don't want it to be too crazy. And one of the things that I really like is that the other reporters like to listen. So I get to ask lots of questions.
Right. We heard Jason, your voice several times during that.
Jason, are you saying that you like to talk?
Who, me? No.
Who, you? No.
Not a talkative guy.
All right, so guys, we're going to move on. We want to talk a little bit about the NBA, because the NBA playoffs are still going on, and there was a Dukie in the NBA who just got a very, very big honor. Brandon Ingram has been named the most improved player in the NBA. He narrowly edged out Bam Adebayo of the Miami Heat for the award. Luka Doncic was also in the running for this award. He came in third. I will openly predict that this is the absolute last time ever, that Luka Doncic will be considered for most improved player. That dude's had a hell of a season, but we're here to celebrate Brandon Ingram, who really stepped up his scoring significantly. He became a much bigger outside threat. I think I read someplace that Brandon Ingram made more three-pointers in this aborted season than he had in his entire NBA career up until now. I'm not 100% certain of that, but I think that's what I read. But huge props to Brandon. The most improved player is a big deal award. So, just really happy for him to have done that well. And he didn't make the playoffs, but there's still a couple Dukies still playing. Jason Tatum leading the Boston Celtics is sort of the most prominent guy still going on in the playoffs. Sam, can I go to you first? Just want to really quick ask, any thoughts on the NBA and the playoffs and what the Dukies are doing right now?
Yeah, and don't forget that Jason Tatum also appeared right at the top of that voting list for most improved player. So I think it's worth us taking a few moments and celebrating both of those guys. As you said, Ingram for the leap that he's made this year, particularly on offense. But I think as a leader on the team, we know that he's a quiet, kind of reserved guy. He was like that at Duke. He was like that his first few years in the NBA. He still kind of is, but he's really blossoming into a top tier player in the league. And we've said before that change of scenery for him from going from LA, which is nothing to say nothing bad about the Lakers organization. They've got LeBron, they've got a lot of guys who are playing well there, but Ingram getting to flex a little bit more and be a little bit more of the focal point of the offense and play with Lonzo Ball has been awesome for him this year in New Orleans, not to mention being surrounded by so many Duke guys, including in the front office there with Trajan Langdon running the show. And then for Jason Tatum, I mean, he's been fantastic in these playoffs and almost won this most improved player. And usually when you see that most improved player award, it's hard for a guy who was already at Jason Tatum's level to be eligible for it this year. But that's how much he's grown as a player. And he's at both ends of the floor. He's working incredibly hard, and the Celtics look great right now. They had an excellent game against the Raptors. The Bucks stumbled. The Bucks, who were the top seed in the East, stumbled the other night against the Miami Heat. So I think you can see that the East is open for any of these teams to make it to the finals. And Tatum's the most important, perhaps, player on the Celtics. So good for him. And I know that
he's definitely most important. Yeah,
we'll be tuning in. I think to see that Quinn Cook is still playing for the Lakers. Obviously, Austin Rivers is still in the playoffs with the Rockets. They're in a wild series with the Oklahoma City Thunder. But Tatum is the most important player at least from the Duke fans' perspective, who is still left in this playoff. So definitely have to pay attention to him.
Brandon Ingram deserved this award. Jason, you were talking about the 3-point shooting that he did. He averaged less than a 3-pointer made per game entering this season. And this season he went to 2.4. So that right there, the level that he shot was incredible. JJ Redick marveled at times at how he's like, Brandon Ingram is a better 3-point shooter than I am this season. And JJ is a pretty good 3-point shooter. But I will say on Tatum, I do think if they took the bubble into account when factoring in voting for these awards, Jason Tatum would have won just based on those first 8 seeding games. He would have edged out Brandon Ingram, I think, because that is when he took his game from otherworldly status to he's actually one of the top 10 players in the NBA status. And he's continued that throughout these playoffs. You've really seen it. I will note that our boy Mason Plumlee is also still in these playoffs. And I will tell you, just a sidebar, the game of the playoffs has been Jamal Murray versus Donovan Mitchell. And that series concludes tonight as we record. TV.
It's been out of control. I mean, as much as we were enjoying the end of the regular season in the bubble, the playoff games so far have just been unreal. And the Houston Oklahoma City series, it is crazy too. So yeah, it's been extremely fun to watch.
Yeah, I've watched every single game of these playoffs, like literally every single game. I don't care if it's at 1:00 or 8:00 in the evening. But when I tell you that matchup, I want to see for the next decade, Mitchell versus Murray, because that has been absolutely fantastic. And I think if you listen to this afternoon, tune in tonight, Tuesday, because Game 7 is going to be a monster. You will not want to miss.
And is that like theoretically Denver and Utah should be rivals, right? Because they are geographically similar. When I lived in Denver, I did not detect that was the case, but I don't think there was a lot of Nuggets fever when I was there in the first place. So maybe it's sparking a rivalry that hopefully lasts for a while.
They were pseudo rivals back in the 90s, when the Jazz had Stockton Malone and the Nuggets had Dikembe Mutombo. They were going at each other in the playoffs, but it was always, because the Jazz were, the Jazz, they were always beating the Nuggets back then. So it was a rivalry of sorts, but it was more like the Nuggets say, damn, we always get to this point and lose to the Jazz. But then again, everyone in the Western Conference was, and then the Jazz would just go on and lose to the Bulls.
I do want to point out, we've mentioned a lot of different names of different Dukies out there. There is one more that we are neglecting to mention and we haven't talked about, and I want to interview him at some point, but now is obviously not the right time. The head coach of the Utah Jazz is Quinn Snyder, and he's doing a heck of a job with that team. I know Quinn is not quite in the running for Coach of the Year. I think it's probably going to be Nick Nurse.
Nick Nurse already won it.
Oh, Nick Nurse already won it. Yeah. Not surprised at that. And over in the East, there are a number of guys doing some really great jobs. Eric Spoelstra, certainly Brad Stevens in Boston's, doing a great job coaching. But Quinn Snyder is up there. If you were putting together a list of the top 10 coaches in the NBA right now, I think there's no question that Quinn would be on that list. And he deserves some props for giving the ball to Donovan Mitchell and watching him go to work.
Honestly, just how he had to deal with everything. I mean, think about it. The NBA stopped because the coronavirus started on his team. They had rift. We had the rift between Gobert and Mitchell.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, putting those guys back together because those were his two best players.
Mm-hmm. I think that was an incredible job that probably isn't reflected in the voting, but I see you, Quinn.
Quinn Snyder's also wearing the tightest pants in the bubble, like by far. It's painful to watch him walking up and down the court. You haven't noticed this? I feel like it's very striking.
I've noticed it, but I wasn't going to mention it. I was going to let it go, and you decided to bring it up.
I think it's important. The poor man looks like he needs it. Maybe his tailor is so good. It's like he's so perfect.
There's some high water pants is what we would call them down in the South. They're the ones that you wear when you go fishing, when you go fly fishing. What Payne Stewart used to wear. Those type of things. He needs a tailor. He needs a tailor bad.
Hey, Quinn is a fashionista. The dude has always been well. I will tell you. So I was in the class with Quinn. We lived together, not literally the same room, but same building. We hung in the same circles as freshmen. Quinn Snyder has always been a very well-dressed young man.
And look, this is coming from two bald guys and a guy that looks like Jason. So take all of our sartorial advice with a grain of salt. But yes,
we love you, Quinn.
Amen. Hey, folks, we're going to have to take a quick break. When we come back, a couple coaching legends have left us, and we just want to reflect on these really important figures and their connections to Duke University. We'll be back with that just after a quick break. All right, guys, we're back, and some sad news in the world of college basketball in just the past couple of days. To call them giants, to call them legends, almost doesn't do it justice. John Thompson and Lute Olson, almost on the Mount Rushmore. These guys are huge figures in college basketball history. Both guys who won national titles, who shaped the way the game was played and the way the game was talked about. John Thompson, to a large extent, ruled the Big East. Lute Olson certainly ruled the Pac-12 for a time, and we lost both of them, in the span of hours this week. And we just want to reflect on it a little bit. Donald, I'll go to you first. DC boy, John Thompson had to have been just a giant figure for you, growing up and for much of your life.
Well, he was. I mean, I didn't grow up in DC, but John Thompson was the Black Americans coach. He was the first Black coach to win a NCAA title. He made Georgetown into such a name that a lot of black people thought that Georgetown was a historic black college. That's the type of program that he built. And not only that, and I'm sure Sam may know a little bit about some of these stories, but the fact that he was an activist off the court, he was saving guys' lives off the court. There's a poignant story about when he realized that some of his players on the team were being wined and dined by a drug dealer, a prominent drug dealer in DC. And he called that drug dealer into his office and he said, "You will not go near my players ever again." And the drug dealer was like, "Coach, I respect you. You're the man. I won't go near him." And he didn't. And like things like that, where John Thompson was so well respected by everyone. I will say this, when it comes to tying it back to Duke a little bit, yesterday when the news came that he passed, Coach K called in the Sports Center. Now, Coach K doesn't just call in to radio stations or national programs to talk about anyone, but he called in to Sports Center to talk about John Thompson for 6 minutes and just talked about, what their relationship was, what he meant to the game. And he meant a whole hell of a lot to a lot of people, but especially to black athletes everywhere. I mean, Allen Iverson talks about how he literally saved his life. He was going to college and then he caught a case in high school, a very well-profiled case, and everyone shied away from him. And he said his mom drove up to Georgetown and talked to John Thompson and said, "Take a chance on my boy." And he did. And we now know Allen Iverson as Hall of Famer, or soon to be Hall of Famer, because he has one of the greatest careers ever. But John Thompson shaped a lot of lives, and on and off the basketball court. But on the basketball court, he was fierce. That towel around his shoulder is something that's everything. Everyone knows what that means. And everyone, if you're just draping a towel over your shoulder, if you're wearing a suit, everyone knows exactly who you're referring to. And I saw a lot of tributes to that last night, and well deserved. So rest in peace, Coach John Thompson, one of the just absolute giants of this game, college basketball period.
I'll add that, I grew up just outside of Washington, D.C. I'm a little too young to remember John Thompson coaching in his prime. Like I don't remember Allen Iverson in college. I certainly don't remember Alonzo Mourning or Dikembe Mutombo. But John Thompson is, as you said, Donald, is an enormous figure around DC. So he's had impact like throughout the community. And I said to you guys that I only remember him as being an old man on radio and being kind of grumpy, but I think that stems from his long years of carrying so much weight around with him, because he was carrying the weight of his basketball program, but like Donald said, he was kind of carrying the weight of the black college basketball player around with him, because he was one of the earliest prominent black head coaches at a school that is not in a traditionally black neighborhood. Georgetown is a fancy white neighborhood, and in at a Jesuit school, this is not the kind of place that you would expect a black man to create such a legacy, but John Thompson did. So kudos to him for leaving an enormous legacy, and may he rest in peace.
Yeah, so I'll do a quick John Thompson story to connect it to Duke. John Thompson was a disciple of Dean Smith, and they were very, very close, very dear friends. And John Thompson said that the first time he met Coach K, he really wanted to hate him because Coach K was at Duke, and John Thompson was very, felt a great deal of allegiance to Dean Smith and to the UNC program. And John Thompson admitted, he was like, "I really wanted to hate Coach K, but I sat down and chatted with him a little bit, and I was like, oh God, this guy's a good guy. I can't do it." And I know that Coach K felt very strongly about his relationship with John Thompson, as well as indicated by the statement he gave yesterday and by calling in and all those other kind of things. So there's no question that, John Thompson was someone, sort of dear to the Duke program, and Duke and Georgetown had some very significant battles when John Thompson was there, some very memorable games. But you want to talk about memorable games. Sam, I know this goes back well before your time. Donald, I'm not sure if you'll remember any of this as well. We also lost Lute Olson of Arizona yesterday, or in the past couple of days, I should say. And Duke and Arizona, this is back in my era, in the late 80s and early 90s, had a series. They would play every year, every other year. I think it was every other year, actually. And they would sort of alternate. Sometimes it was neutral court. Sometimes it was at Arizona, and sometimes it was at Duke. They just played some absolutely epic, really significant games. And Coach K's interaction with Lute Olson was a major part of these games. In the 1987, I'm going to give folks a little history lesson here, because I said to Sam yesterday, we were talking a little bit about what we're going to do in this podcast. And I said, we're going to talk about Lute Olson. I said, I guess I'm going to talk about the game that caused the referee game that caused Duke to end the series with Arizona. And Sam was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Right, Sam,
I thought the most significant thing about Lute Olson was that he lost to Duke in the 2001 national championship. Ayo.
No, yes, he did. But no, boy, wait until you hear about this. So it starts in 1987. And Duke is playing at Arizona in Tucson. Danny Ferry gets called for a foul, and Lute Olson and Danny Ferry shouts at the Arizona bench because he's upset at the foul. He goes, "We're getting homered here." And Lute Olson starts to get in a shouting match with Danny Ferry. Coach K flips his lid. I mean, he goes up to Lute Olson. He's like, you and me, we talk. We're the coaches. Don't talk to my players. I mean, they were like in each other's faces. It was a definite moment. Coach K was not pleased with the refereeing there. So we fast forward 4 years to 1991. Duke is again playing in Arizona. And this is the game that ended the series. Duke refused to play in Arizona ever again after this. It was in February of 1991. I've looked this game up. It was a big deal game. Duke and Arizona both ranked in the top 10. The game went to double overtime. Arizona ends up winning the game. But the significant thing that happened was Greg Kubek of Duke hit a three-pointer in the first overtime that looked like it was going to, put Duke in really good shape to win the game. And then almost a minute after he hit it, the referees went back and said, no, we're changing it. It was only a two-pointer. And by the way, the TV replays, they made it clear. There was no question. Kubek was behind the line. It was a three-pointer for sure. And Coach K after the game said, there must have been some confusion. There was some problem at the scorers table and with the referees tonight. I guess they're just not used to playing close games here and figuring out what happens in actual close games. But Coach K was apparently furious that he felt like the Pac-12 refs, the refs in Arizona, had jobbed Duke and robbed us of a victory in a very significant game. And he vowed, he said, I'm never playing here again. And Duke has never played in Tucson. We have never played at Arizona since that game. So, Sam, that is the sort of infamous referee game that ended what was a huge, great series, against Arizona. And my memories of Lute Olson, you talk about the 2001. Yes, Lute Olson was on the opposing sideline in 2001. But my memory of him is opposing Duke in those late 80s, early 90s, just epic battles. Duke won most of them, but it was one of the best series. You would look forward to it every single year. And one last one. There is a game in the Duke-Arizona series in 1989 that is one of the most important losses in Duke history, and I'm going to explain to you why. Duke was playing in the Meadowlands, and it was the game. Duke was trailing 77-75 with only 4 seconds left in the game, and a freshman for Duke who was on the floor got fouled and had a 1-and-1 that he could hit to tie the game and send it to overtime against Arizona. Big deal. Again, both teams ranked in the top 5. And that freshman for Duke missed the front end of the 1-and-1, and Duke lost that game. And he afterwards, he vowed, he said, I'm never missing another he was so upset at himself. He said, I'm never missing another clutch shot. And that freshman, of course, was Christian Laettner, who would go on to make more than his fair share of clutch shots after that. And that is sort of the one failure that led to Christian becoming the guy who never failed in the heat of the moment again in the rest of his career. I do want to add, I was actually at that game. So my senior year, me and 3 of my buddies road tripped from Durham up to New York, up to the Meadowlands to see that game. This was the road trip from hell. I mean, we got into an accident with our car at one point, so we had to ditch it and pick up a rental car. We got a ticket, I know. We went to Atlantic City, lost all our money, didn't even have enough money to pay tolls on the way home, and Duke lost the game. It was a bad road trip. This is not a good road trip.
You drove on 95. Like, what did you expect was going to happen?
Yeah, you're probably right about that. But so those are my memories of Lute Olson, again, a giant guy who made the Arizona is still a prominent program today because of what Lute Olson did to make that program in the past. And guys, there's yet another death. It's not directly in the basketball world, but it's something that people in the basketball world have noted a lot. Donald, I know you wanted to talk about this. Just go ahead and give it to me, buddy.
Well, guys, there's actually two that I want to briefly note. The first one actually is in the world of basketball. Clifford Robinson, who played for a decade and a half in the NBA, played on several teams, including my Detroit Pistons. He passed away over the weekend. You know him by the headband. And I think one of the cool tributes that I saw was all of Portland, who he spent a lot of years with in their final game in the playoffs against the Lakers. They all wore headbands, black headbands, to kind of pay tribute to him. I think the way the NBA kind of does these subtle yet poignant tributes is something that we've seen a lot of over the last few days. And I think it's something that's really remarkable that they do that. And it's a fitting touch to a guy who really was one of the great players in the NBA. He was a great competitor, and a lot of players have commented on how he was so tough to play against and so warm off the field or off the court to be around. So rest in peace to Uncle Cliff, as they called him back in the day. But also I want to note on the passing of Chadwick Boseman. Now you're thinking this doesn't have anything to do with basketball, but it does, because Chadwick was obviously a really big basketball fan. He, in his role as several different, incredible black people in his movies, Thurgood Marshall, Jackie Robinson, but really his role as Black Panther is one that was for us. And a lot of guys really took that to heart. He took that to heart. And just the fight that he had, he passed away from colon cancer, and he didn't tell anyone, at least publicly, that he had it. So he did all these movies while still fighting this disease. And I know someone who passed away from colon cancer a couple of years ago. It's a terrible fight. And the way that he was able to put that strength and really do everything that he was asked of, do all his movies to perfection, do all of the publicity around that, and also even the charity work that he did, volunteering by showing up as Black Panther at children's hospitals to entertain kids. A lot of guys on the court were paying tribute to him by throwing up the Wakanda salute during the moments of silence that they had, or just marveling about the fact that, they talked about Victor Oladipo in the dunk contest a couple years ago, did a Black Panther dunk. He got the mask from Chadwick Boseman back in 2018. It's a very cool dunk. Go back and look at it. But that, intertwining between movies and pop culture and sports has always been linked. But when it comes to Chadwick Boseman and it comes to the Black Panther role, and even Jackie Robinson, when he played him in 42, his role kind of, really had an intertwining with these athletes. And you see how they were playing the other night for him. They were, talking about him, but really, for all Black Americans, this was a huge gut punch after all that we've been through. And for the guys on the court, it was no exception. But the fact that they took time out to honor him shows you what he meant to basketball, what he meant to sports in general, and what he just meant to the culture. So I just wanted to make a brief note of that. Those two guys, Cliff Robertson and Chadwick Boseman, both of them gone way, 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 way too soon. But we appreciated them while they were here.
Yeah, I'll tell you, when I saw the news about Chadwick Boseman, I just happened to be on Twitter just minutes after it happened. It was announced, and I thought this has to be a horrible joke. There's no way this could be true. He was a real giant in the acting world. You've seen the tributes just pouring in from all corners of both Hollywood and other industries, other people who were affected by his performances and appreciated what he put on the screen and the passion that he brought to his work. We are a poorer place to not have him in it, but we are a much richer place to have had him for the short time that we did. So,
I will say that the tweet that you mentioned from his official Twitter announcing his passing in 12 hours became the most liked and most retweeted tweet of all time. And that just shows you just the effect that he had on everybody. whether you were in sports or in entertainment, you were affected by that. Just the shocking nature of it, just the announcement, and really just again how he affected everything that we do. Every movie that we see now. I mean, even just for people who are in the Marvel Cinematic Universe or in other parts, that is none of that will ever be the same, and it shows the impact that he left and the legacy that he left in such a short time.
Look, there's a simple truth. We should all hope to lead a life where at the end of that life, bozos like the three of us spend 20 minutes on a silly podcast talking about the impact we had on society. So all four of these guys that we've mentioned in the past few minutes, like I said earlier, the world is a better place for them having been in it, and that is what we should all strive to achieve. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up with a quick conversation about the future of NCAA basketball. I think that we may have stumbled across the branding that the NCAA is going to try and put on, if not basketball, certainly some of its championships, some of the ways it's going to try and play sports. A trademark attorney, and it is not often that we talk about trademark attorneys on this podcast, but a trademark attorney happened to stumble across a trademark the other day that from the NCAA, trademarking these words. Are you ready for them? Battle in the bubble. The NCAA has trademarked battle in the bubble, and it has said, we plan to use this connected to sports, and we are planning to put it on apparel like shirts and hats and things like that. I think that we now have some idea of what the NCAA is going to try to call its effort to get sports really going again. They're going to call it the battle in the bubble. Sam, what is your feeling about the NCAA marketing geniuses and the battle in the bubble?
Well, we bring this topic to the forefront as I'm drinking this morning out of my oversized plastic March Madness cup that I think I got from Omaha a couple years ago, maybe, or I don't know. It could be from another year, but it is
March Madness. Yes, the NCAA has done this before quite successfully.
Yes. March Madness is a property that the NCAA owns, and this is just a great reminder that if nothing else, the NCAA is an organization that just has a brand. Like that's kind of their main reason for existence is to run the basketball tournament. We know that they are immensely careful stewards of their brand. When you watch March Madness on TV, you only see March Madness logos. You only see the corporate sponsors that are related to the NCAA, whether the game is being played in Spokane or Boston or Miami, no matter where the NCAA tournament is, you only see NCAA logos and the official NCAA corporate sponsors. So yes, I am not surprised that they are all over trademarking whatever they might need to pull off an NCAA tournament in a bubble in March, April, May, June, whenever that is going to be. They are ready for it. Will they have all the other logistics in place? Will the conferences want to participate? Stay tuned. But until then, no, this isn't surprising to me at all. It's always fun when people dig up stuff like this, and at least it means that they're planning well in advance, which I think of all the things we could say about the leaders of college athletics the last few months, maybe this means that their planning is improving, because it seems like they've done a lot of waiting and seeing, and now they're finally getting ahead of it.
I like how this discovery by this trademark attorney has led to us, A, knowing what their plans are, while B, not really knowing anything, because this could be related to early season, those preseason, I say in air quotes, the tournaments that we have, like the, Maui Classic and all that stuff. But this could also mean that they're preparing for the possibility that the March Madness tournament won't occur in March. And if March Madness doesn't occur in March, can you still call it March Madness? No, you can call it the battle in the bubble. And I think.
And wait, hold on. We haven't even talked about the fact that the bubble is already a term that is associated with March Madness. So right. The NCAA is all over it, right? The teams that are on the cusp of making the NCAA tournament are said to be on the bubble. So
could this be that playing game? Could this be that playing game?
How many commentators are going to be talking about teams leading into the tournament and saying, so-and-so is on the bubble, but the rest of these teams are in the bubble? You're going to get tired of it. even before it happens.
Yeah, but yeah, that's the thing is you don't know what part they're going to apply it to, and then they're going to. I still hold out some skepticism on the NCAA because I know they're going to apply it in a way that I'm going to be like, really? That's what we waited for? We waited all year to have you apply Battle on the Bubble to this like 4-team like preseason tournament? Okay, fine. Go ahead with it. Take the bread. This is something I think is going to be
the big tournament.
Yeah, it has to be just in case, the NCAA tournament isn't occurring in March. But it could also apply to that, those 4 playing games that they have where those guys that are, quote, on the bubble get to play themselves into the tournament and they call it the Battle in the Bubble. So we'll see how they use it. But at least they're thinking forward when it comes to this.
Look, we've sort of stumbled our way into talking about the future of this college basketball season. And I will say this, I don't think any of us know, and by any of us, I don't mean just the 3 of us on this podcast. I mean, any of us, including lots of the higher ups at the NCAA, including Coach K even. I don't think any of us know yet exactly what form the season is going to take. There's been a lot of talk. The NCAA, like the Board of Governors and folks involved with college basketball are probably in the next week or two going to come out with dates that they're going to start the season. They're probably going to push the start of the season back a little bit as they try and figure things out a little bit more. I've heard a lot of talk of December 4th, I believe, as a date that could likely start the season just after Thanksgiving. A lot of the theory is you don't want to get it going before Thanksgiving. And it's entirely possible that they will push things back, like you guys said, out of March. And no one knows, the NCAA tournament may be very different. It may be that this is the year that they only do 64 teams as opposed to 68. A lot of stuff unknown, but you guys are right. I think we now know. I strongly suspect, as Donald, as you said, that Battle in the Bubble is what we're going to call the NCAA tournament this year if we don't call it March Madness. And I think it's pretty likely, just the way things work out, that it may slip beyond March at least a little bit. And Coach K has been on the record as saying, look, I don't care if you wait until May. He said, you play an NCAA tournament. It is too important from a revenue standpoint for the NCAA for you to skip another NCAA tournament. And most of the experts are saying there's no way that they will have to find a way to play an NCAA tournament. It's too much money. It's just too important.
So I think a couple weeks ago when we discussed Coach K's comments on that radio show on ESPN, he mentioned that September 10th is when the NCAA had promised a proposal to basketball coaches about how they're going to pursue the season. And I think that December 4th date that you mentioned was something that has been thrown out. And I think it makes sense because the way that this has been set up across America, the majority of college campuses are planning to finish all of their fall semester classes before Thanksgiving. And so it will give the chance for college teams, basketball teams, to establish a bubble of some sort. Now, when it comes to when it's going to be played, I mean, like Coach K said, we don't even know when the NBA season is going to start. And that's usually how they dictate, how all these, deadlines with people entering the draft, the combine, and the NBA draft itself. Having a March Madness doesn't really make sense when the NBA is not going to start until maybe after Christmas. So, and that'll delay just everything. So I think Coach K is right in saying, let's take our time. This Battle in the Bubble thing of having this outside of March may be the compromise here. But I think September 10th is when we should be looking for something from the NCAA on how they plan to pursue a college basketball season safely.
And so much can change between now and September 10th. It's just a little more than a week away, but we have seen this horrible pandemic. This virus just keeps on throwing us for loops and changing things on us and all that kind of stuff. But the one constant that all of you can count on is that we will be here to tell you about it when it happens, to talk about Duke basketball and college basketball and all the other stuff going on. So, but that is going to wrap it up here on episode 227 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. I am Jason Evans. Sam Klein, thank you for joining us. Donald Wine, thanks for being here. We are going to wrap it up here and hand it over to the Duke Band. Guys, take us home.